Welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you.
So we met through Ashley, who has been on the show, I don't know, 6, 7 times now. She's a regular attendee on my show. And I know her and I just talked openly about our relapses. What is your clean date?
January 9th, 2020.
January 9th, 2020. So you got a little over 4.5 years then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I guess it depends on who you ask. Everybody envisions sobriety time different. So like to me though, my clean date is January 9th, 2020. That's when I finally like took myself to an inpatient rehab by choice, not court ordered or because child services wanted me to or whatever else. So it made a huge difference, but I was not one of those people that got it the first try or wanted it, you know?
Yeah, that was my next question. What was going on January 8th of 2020?
My buzz was wearing off and I was like, now or never. Because I knew if I didn't, like, I wasn't, you know? I had to go with that intention right then and there.
What was your drug of choice that your buzz was coming off of?
That one was like a really bad cocaine bender. But when people ask me my drug of choice, I'm like, you would have to ask like what part of my life, because like the one that I literally lost everything and gave up everything to, and that had the biggest impact in many ways was opiates, like pills. Yep. And then it started to, heroin, and that was before they started putting like the fentanyl in it. But and then benzos.
I'm the same way where like I had different like chapters.
Yep.
If this was like a book, I had different chapters of my using days. And if you were to ask me like anniversaries, I have 3 different anniversaries.
Yeah.
Actually, I have 4 now. I have opiates April 25th, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have alcohol, February 29th, 2020. And then I have benzos and weed, April 1st of 2024.
Okay.
And now gambling, I haven't gambled since July 13th.
Wow.
So I go to Gamblers Anonymous on the weekends. I found meetings in Las Vegas through Zoom, and I attend them because I figured if anyone has good recovery for gambling, it's people who live in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So,
that's awesome. And I think that like they knew what they were doing probably when they made the Gamblers Anonymous meetings on the weekends, or maybe like after paydays. Cause I feel like I never like dealt with gambling personally, like addicted to it, but I feel like they knew what they were doing when they, especially like you said, like Vegas. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's like the Mecca. So I found some good meetings, and I go to at 12 on Saturdays, but it's 9 a.m. there. And I do 11 a.m. on Sundays where it's 8 a.m. there. So I've been finding some good. It's funny because now I introduce myself in meetings, and like I'm in NA every day at noon. And I always say, I'm JD, I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a compulsive gambler. You name it, I'm probably it.
I love that.
Like that's how I introduce myself now.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
Here in Tiffin, Ohio.
Wonderful Tiffin. I find that a lot of people are in recovery in Tiffin.
Yeah. I always had like the plan to be out of this town, I'm
gonna leave this town someday.
Yeah. And like I kind of did, but like at the end of the day, like I got full sole custody back of my only kid, which is my son. He's 16 now, and he's rooted here. And the only grandparents that he has, like pretty much family that we have, is also in Tiffin. So he's about to be a junior in high school, and I'm like, we're going to be in Tiffin, so.
Yeah. Now, you're my age, right? You're 38?
I'm going to be 38 August 14th.
I'm going to be 38 September 29th.
Okay.
So
Well,
I aged
just
myself.
like Queen time, no fronts. I am not 38 yet.
The only reason I knew that is because your email had an 86 in it. I'm like, well, there's no other reason she would have an 86 except for she was born in 86.
Yep.
Um, so born and raised, when did you discover drugs first or alcohol?
So I'll give you a little bit of like how I got into it. It not intentionally. I have Crohn's disease, which is autoimmune, and I was diagnosed at 15 years old. So I was missing a lot of school. I was like in the hospital and the doctors a lot. You know, my mom was kind of like trying to do what she could for what I was dealing with. And at that point, I was on lots of meds. And I was 15, so I didn't think about anything through. I wouldn't have known to. Um, but like it's super painful, and I would be hospitalized, and I'm talking like IV Dilaudid, and then Percocet and fentanyl patches on my skin. Like they threw this stuff at me, and my mom, of course, not wanted to see her daughter suffer because the doctors say that I need it. That's what happened, and eventually, you know, I got older, and I was still. I'm in remission, but
yeah, I mean, you're talking early 2000s where anybody that's watched a documentary about the Sacklers, whether it was a dramatized version or an actual documentary, which both the version on Netflix is really good and the Hulu version is really good, about the Sacklers. And anybody that knows that, that's like the prime time, 2001, when they're shoving, Oxycontin in everybody's faces.
mm-hmm. And I
Like,
was a minor, you know, like dealing with a chronic illness that I didn't even know how to like understand at the time. And eventually my body was hooked to it without me even, like
yeah.
it was crazy. That's
So
what started it though.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense though,
Mm-hmm.
because people don't realize, the pain charts in the hospitals where it's 1 through 10 and you
Mm-hmm.
pick, that's because of the Sacklers. If you look on the back, it says Purdue Pharmacy. They're the ones that put that in the hospital so that they could prescribe Oxycontin right in the hospital beds. Like point to the
Makes
pain.
sense.
Okay, point to the pain. Okay, then we're going to give you 20s or 40s or 80s. Like
Wow.
just
I didn't know
throwing them
that.
out with candy. Yeah, I saw that in a documentary.
Wow.
And everyone knows that pain chart of going into the hospital, the 1 through 10 with the smiley faces and the frowny faces and shit.
Yeah.
Like everyone knows that pain scale.
Yep.
So you discovered opiates first, but when did you start doing anything recreationally? Did you ever get into drinking?
Yeah. I socially still drink, I guess you would say. And I know that's like controversial, but
I've had
I
people on the show that were drinking during their recording, so don't feel
no
bad.
drinking. I'm drinking sweet tea.
I'm drinking Celsius.
Yeah. Um,
So
but as far as like recreational stuff, when I first started abusing something was when I was probably about 20, 21. I had just gotten divorced, and I was hanging out with a crowd here in Tiffin, and they had told me that the medications that I had could be used differently and taken more of, and how, and like how great it was. So that opened Pandora's box. I ended up snorting a perk 5 of my prescription and sharing my prescription with these people that told me apparently I had good stuff, and that was it.
Perk 5, that's a ton of Tylenol.
Oh my god, yeah,
That's so much Tylenol you're snorting.
it is.
And people don't realize.
Eventually I got to the point to manipulate it where when I constantly was going to the doctors and had to get my scripts, and this is after I was into my addiction, I would say, oh, I don't have a good tolerance with Tylenol, give me the ones without. Like that's crazy though. That's my addict mind at that point.
Yeah. Okay, we skipped over. How old were you when you got married?
We probably skipped over a lot.
Yeah,
um
let's backtrack a little bit. Let's get
okay.
into so high school. You only really use your medicine as medicines like a regular person would.
Yes.
But you're in and out of class. Did you end up graduating?
Yes.
Okay, so even though you
05.
missed a lot of school, you still made it on 05?
Yep.
Me too. Class of 05 here. We're the cool kids. And I'm going to pretend you're not wearing an Ohio State shirt the entire time because my brother and myself are big Michigan fans. So we went to a Michigan game, and on our way back, we stopped off the highway to get Burger King, and we happened to be in Columbus. And his car's got decals and shit. And the girl was like, "Listen, I shouldn't even be serving you right now, but just take your bags and get the hell out of here as fast as possible."
That's great.
It was like a Sunday morning, and we were like, "Okay, thanks for the food," and then left and got back on the highway and got the hell out of Columbus.
That's funny.
So born and raised around there, and high school was a regular high school experience besides all the hospital visits.
Yeah.
Now, did you meet your husband when you were in high school? Because you got married young.
I did get married young. It was we met like around like 18 or 19, and then it was actually long distance. His family was a predominant like Air Force family, lived on a base down in the one by Dayton. What's it called? Wright-Patterson? Is that what it, no.
I wouldn't know. I've only been in Ohio like 3 times.
I don't remember, but it was an Air Force base down in by Dayton, Ohio, and like his dad was a master sergeant, and then he ended up joining the Air Force. But yeah, it was long distance for like 3 years, and then we finally like met up and decided it was a good idea to. We didn't want to do distance anymore, so like in the military, it was super encouraged and common to get married young. So we did that. And it didn't last even a year, not even.
So the son you have that's 16, is that from that marriage? That makes sense.
He's never met him. And I don't want to say anything to like, yeah, I don't want to say anything really like we have a communication that works for us. His wife that he has now has been in the Air Force, and they're stationed in Germany right now, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So but they communicate, video or messages, and that's kind of it. And we're okay with that at this point. It's not like real, like it's hard for people to wrap their head around, but my son and me, we've had a lot of talks, and we're okay,
That's good. That's all that really matters. Mm-hmm. So you're 21, newly divorced. Oh, we have the same tattoo. Where is it?
This one?
Wait, this one, yeah. Mine is right. Yeah, it's right there on my wrist.
Yeah.
On my right wrist.
Me too.
Yep. Twinsies.
Twins.
So I got mine right out of rehab. That's when I got mine. I was like 2 months sober when I got mine. So now you're newly divorced, newborn, and you discover that you can actually snort your pills. That's what we're up to.
That's where we're at.
And you start manipulating your doctors to give you, the non-Tylenol ones that you could snort. Were you ever prescribed 30s?
No, not prescribed 30s. No, 15s. Yeah.
The green monsters, as they call them.
I'm like having to like think back. Like I know I'm recovering, but dang. Yeah, I think they were green and the 30s were blue.
30s were blue.
Yeah.
I was like stuck on 30s. It doesn't make it any better. I never did heroin because I was able to function and afford my 30s every day. So I was able to stay high every day. Well, I would withdrawal every day too until I got more 30s. Yeah. But I was addicted to snorting them, to the way they tasted, to everything. I had rituals of how I was snorting them. You know what I mean? Like I could do it while I was driving 80 miles per hour.
Wow.
Not off of like I wouldn't. I had a collection of straws in my center console, like full-size straws,
Yeah.
and I would bend them in half and drop the pill in the half of it where it's bent, and I'd chew on the side to break it up, and then I would extend the straw and then, just like that.
That's creative. Dang.
Yeah, thank you. That's actually when I relapsed on benzos, that's how I would snort my Valium. Is I would do the same thing because I didn't want to make too much noise banging on the pills and breaking them up. So I figured if I just chewed on the straw and hit the straw, I'd be good to go.
Yeah.
And then eventually I came forward with what I've been doing with my medicine, because I was prescribed the Valium. And the problem was I had control of my pills. So I was going to do them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and they were supposed to be as needed, like a PRN. And I was definitely doing multiple at one time for the effects. Because I had a psychiatrist right there on my finger and I would get whatever I wanted from him.
Yeah.
Psychiatrists they're just there to write scripts and they don't really think about the consequences to what they're writing.
Yep.
So it is what it is now. So you're doing your own pills. How long did it take before you branched out from your own medications?
Like on the street and stuff?
Yeah.
Not long, because like I said, I was hanging around people and we were kind of like doing my script. So, of course they had been using connections before I was introduced to even abusing them. But, yeah, it didn't take long and that's when, we started running into, what's that one medicine? And this is like, my memory is weird. What's that one that you had to do like a quarter of it and you were tapped out? And I was like puking. It wasn't Percocet and it wasn't Oxycontin.
It wasn't Dilaudid?
Nope.
Dilaudid, Norco. I'm trying to think. Morphine.
No, I feel like I need to Google it now.
Go ahead. I'm trying to think of what it could. It's not Suboxone, right?
Nope.
No. Because weren't you withdrawing?
Opanas.
Oh, Opanas. Okay. You were prescribed Opanas.
No, I sought them out on the street. Anything to not be sick at that point, because I was, going.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking at this point, you have been on opiates for more than 5 years, because if you're 15 years old and being medicated with them, even if you were to abruptly stop, you would start going through withdrawal. Yeah. Even if taking them medicinally, you would still go through withdrawal stopping. So now you're 22, 23, and you're running out of your scripts within days, I'm sure.
Yeah. Because the tolerance, that's not enough anymore. And that's like it's super common. And that's like a lot of things where it did lead to eventually some heroin use, and being introduced to shooting up. Like, it was just about chasing that same feeling, but like trumping it every time, feeling like I needed to, like it was, and then mixing it with benzos, because I was prescribed Xanax to deal with the anxiety of having chronic illness, accordingly to my doctors. Like, so it was awful.
What were you prescribed for Xanax? Like the footballs or
the footballs?
The footballs. Okay, that's what I was prescribed too.
Mm-hmm.
I did mine a different way. I found a shady doctor and I would buy them off the street, but once a month I would get a script of 30s and a script of bars or footballs.
Yeah.
And I found a doctor that would write a script for whatever you asked for. And he only took cash, no insurance. Like, you can't use your insurance. It's only cash. And you know how to see a doctor, you need a referral a lot of times. Well, this doctor required you to get a referral from somebody that was already a patient, not a referral from a doctor. You had to have another patient be like, yeah, he's cool, he can come into our club, basically.
What? That's wild.
Yeah. So that's how shady. And it was like in an old house. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't even like a regular doctor's office. It was in like a house on this residential street. Yeah, that's how shady that place was. I would go there
That's
once a month.
crazy.
It would be $150 once a month. And I would get a script of 120 30s and a script of 120 footballs, and which are 1 milligram Xanax for those who don't
Yeah.
know what a football is.
Yeah.
And I would go through them in 5, 6 days. You know what I mean? And it's because I would also make deals with people like, hey, if you spot me 4, I'll give you 8 back when I get my script. You know,
Yeah.
I start doing that shit. And so my
Mhm.
script is like half of it's out the window as soon as I get it because I owe these people like 30s. But they knew it was a guaranteed thing, except for, and you probably ran into this, how hard did it get to fill your scripts?
Mm,
You ever have any trouble trying to find a pharmacy to fill your scripts?
I don't think so.
You're lucky then. I used to have to get run all over the place to try to find a pharmacy that would fill that many.
Really?
Well, you probably had it different because you were younger when you were prescribed. So they probably
Mhm.
had the count for you already. So that might have been a little bit easier for you. For
Yeah.
me, I was in my 20s. I'll never
Okay.
forget the day they shut down. They got raided and shit. I got a phone call from the nurse saying, "Hey, we can't see you for your last appointment next week, but if you come in right now, I'll give you your last script." So I shot over there as fast as I could. I walked in. She handed me a blue prescription pad, handed me my last script, and I walked out of there. And I knew I could never go back again. And I immediately got it filled, and they were gone in days.
Wow. I still
Yeah,
can't get over the fact that a current patient could refer. That's like pretty much saying, like, hey, you and all your friends, come on. Like,
that's exactly what it was. Like you should have saw the waiting room there. Like it would be 20 people in that waiting room at a time. And you would get there, say you had an appointment at 9:30, you want to get there at 8 just so you have a seat and just so you can get out of there by 10
yeah.
because it would always run long. And Tuesday nights and Thursday nights is when they had night people there, and you would be sitting there till 8, 9 o'clock at night to get a script, which at that point you can't get it filled until the next day because the pharmacies are closed by 9.
Yep.
You gotta walk in by 8 to have it filled by. I knew all the rules.
Oh,
I
yeah.
knew I knew which pharmacy had certain pills. Like I knew that CVS
Like,
had the V's. Yeah, Walmart had the M's.
yep.
Walgreens had M's.
The ends were it for
Yeah, the
me.
M's. That's what the fake fentanyl pills are being pressed with, looking
Yep.
like M's.
I
Um,
know.
who had the A's? Somebody had the A215s, and I'm blanking
Oh,
on it.
yeah.
I like the A215s and I like the M's, but I hated getting the V's from CVS. They were like my last, and I would call around the pharmacies being like, which kind do you have? I'm alert. I break out in hives if they're V's. Like, which is the truth. V's would make me break out. I don't know why, but the V's made me all blotchy and shit. So
Weird.
I would tell them like, listen, I'm trying to find a pharmacy that doesn't have the V's because they make me blotchy. So
And
they
they
would
would
tell
tell
me
you?
over the phone. Yeah, they would tell me over the phone which ones they
Wow.
had. There was one night my friend and I were trying to get my script filled. It was a Saturday night, and we were calling around pharmacies all in the South Jersey area. Finally, we found one in Wilmington, Delaware, about an hour away. And we drove to that CVS at like 7 at night in the dead of winter, got it filled, and we were back at his house by like 9 p.m. with or 10 p.m. with a brand new script, and just got ripped all night long on that script. Uh,
Wow.
I mean, it was the hassle of filling a script was the fucking worst
Yeah.
when you're withdrawing
Oh,
because
yeah.
you're throwing up bile the entire time.
Yep.
I lost my gallbladder in sobriety because of all the times I was throwing up bile
Wow.
in addiction. It was a mess.
I'm
So
about to turn my light on because I feel like
go
I'm a
ahead.
creature in the dark right now. Okay, hang on one second. Okay, that's better. Ugh. There we
But
go.
so yeah, that whole run around shit was crazy.
Yeah.
It's funny that you knew this pharmacies though to go to, just like I did. Like you knew which ones had which. Was anybody catching on, like your parents or anything like that? Like, did you have any brothers or sisters, or were you an only child when you grew up?
I had a sister that was like severely handicapped. She ended up being like really difficult. She couldn't feed herself. She was in a wheelchair, couldn't talk, like all of that. And she was my only sibling. And she eventually ended up in like housing where they had 24/7 care and things like that. So
Okay,
then I was by myself, but um yeah, my parents didn't catch on because my mom is never touched like a drink or a drug or a cigarette in her entire life. And so, she didn't know nothing. And I would, it's like I had the validation because I did have a really painful chronic disease with no cure. And I've had lots of procedures and surgeries to where the symptoms are definitely valid, but did I lie and make it up and go to the ER or this and that to my advantage? Absolutely. Could she tell or someone tell that I was? No. Like I was that manipulative and I knew exactly, because I did live with that disease. I do live with that disease, but like I definitely used it to my advantage because I knew I had the paper trail and the scans and the records, and like it was it's crazy to think back, like the things I did and the things I said. And
you just reminded me of, there was one time I was living in Massachusetts and I had an appointment in New Jersey to get more 30s. So, and I didn't have a car at the time. So I took a bus at 4 o'clock in the morning from where I lived to Boston. Then I hopped on another bus from Boston to New York City, hopped on another bus from New York City to Philadelphia, got picked up by my friend, went to my appointment on time at 9:30. After like 5 hours of being on the bus, I got to my appointment on time, got my script, got them filled, and I then came back to Massachusetts with all these pills that I went through in days, right?
yeah.
And eventually I had nothing left, and my roommate was out, and I sold a bunch of her jewelry to make money. But then I called in a police report saying that we were robbed. And in my police report, I put in there that my prescription was robbed. So
Hmm.
when I went to the hospital withdrawing, I said I need a script to refill what I just got in my police report that were stolen. And they were like, well, we can only give you 8 and you have to have your doctor write a new script. And I said, at this point, I'm like, okay, I'll take 8. You know what I mean? 8 for $10 at the pharmacy. That's way better than a dealer's going to give me.
Yeah.
So I got 8 and it was like $10. I didn't have insurance. I had, what's that app called? What's that app called when you could get your prescriptions discounted?
GoodRx.
GoodRx, thank you. That was my insurance. That's because it would cost me like $150 to fill 120 pills, and it would be like $40 for the 120 Xanax.
Yeah.
It's crazy the shit we do to
I
feed
know.
our addiction. But yeah, you just reminded me of that. I haven't told that story, I don't think ever. But it's something I should probably look back on in retrospect and learn lessons, like falsifying a police report and all that kind of stuff. That was in 2013, so that was 11 years ago now, and it definitely doesn't feel like that it was that long ago. So when do you start becoming in remission from your Crohn's disease?
So I had like my last major surgery, I want to say was, let's see, my son was 2, so I'm trying to put the math here. It was like 2011 or so. I ended up in the hospital with a real life flare up. And I was like in it's called Findlay, Ohio, hospital, and I got admitted, and they did like a surgery where they like resected my intestines. They took 2.5 feet out and then just like reconnected it because that was the bad part. And I was in the hospital for 4 months because, and I'm getting to the remission, because they had nicked a hole in my bowel. And I became septic and I was in ICU and like I was not good. I had to have a blood transfusion, all this stuff. They went in to patch the hole. It didn't hold. They had to cut me open again, patch it. So I had a long road of recovery. I was in the hospital for 4 months. Bryson was probably younger than 2 because I had to see his first steps in the hospital. My parents brought him over to visit me. And I was on IV Dilaudid every 4 hours for 4 months.
Now, and this was 2011. You're in the thick of your addiction by this point, right?
Yeah. And like I didn't have like a full idea of what Dilaudid did though.
Oh,
Until,
yeah.
I mean 4 months every 4 hours, that's wild. But I had just had 2 surgeries and like it was crazy. So after I had those surgeries and I came home, they sent I was in remission. I got put on this new medication. I just had that surgery where they repaired like my small bowel. And I did really, really well, but I don't know if it was a combination of not feeling it because they sent me home on fentanyl patches and other things after the Dilaudid in the hospital. But I did well. I was working. I started doing college classes from a community college. I was being, present and home and not running around crazy. So I did well for a while until I didn't, but not with my health. Like, I want to say like my narcotics were running slim to none. They thought I was healed from the surgeries and everything else enough to where they cut it, but my body could not handle that cut.
Yeah, because people don't realize Dilaudid is heroin in a pill. It's pure heroin in a pill. I remember another shady doctor that one of my good friends was going to. He was getting 180 30s a month. And I mean, 180, that's 6 a day, a script for. And the doctor had to cut him down to 120 because of regulations. He had to only give a script for 120. And my friend's like, well, what do I do? Because I'm now used to 180 a day or 180 a month. He was like, well, I'll give you 60 Dilaudid and I'll give you 120 30s. So he would walk out of there with a script for 120 30s and a script for 8 milligram. Like 8 milligram is like the highest dose of Dilaudid you can get, of 60 of them. So, and I never did Dilaudid in my life until he got his first script, and he owed me some because I had spotted him.
Mm-hmm.
How it is, you're on barter systems with people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like to keep each other feeling well, you hook each other up, you look out for each other. Well, you do that with the people that have scripts coming in. You don't do that with random people. You do that with people working scripts.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I'd recommended like 4 different people to my shady doctor. So I was getting hooked up all the time. And he broke out the Dilaudid, and I don't think I've ever been that high. Like, it sent me to the moon. Like, when I first did that, I was like, holy shit, these are strong. Like, I only need one of these. I'm so used to needing 4 30s. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So they start taking you off now of all these like fentanyl patches and Dilaudids, and you start getting sick, I would assume.
I want to say I might have been on like an as needed, like perk 5s and had them for as needed. But with those, of course, the amount that you get in your script is not much because they consider it as needed. But my body was so used to so many narcotics at once and various ways of getting it, like the patches, through the skin. And so it's like I was not good at all.
And it sounds like you weren't even abusing your medications. Like, I know people that smoked fentanyl patches before.
I ate one time.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that was one time. Were you ever abusing those meds as you were getting them?
Not really, no. I want to say I had a couple patches left when they were I had an appointment and they were telling me they were going to transition me to just some oral pills to take, which I think were perks. And I was like in freak out mode. And I think I got a hold of a couple friends locally that had a connection. And I was like, hey, I have like 1 or 2 of these patches left. Like, what can I get for it? Thinking I was going to be able to get more of maybe pills to last me longer to not get sick, because I knew it was coming. I had just had that doctor's appointment and they told me, like, and they didn't suspect anything, but it was just, yeah, it's crazy to think back on. Like, it's just the desperation. My body was physically, it's not a mental thing. My body was literally so used to these hard narcotics for like months on end.
Years on end.
Yeah, years on end.
Because this is what, 2012?
Yeah, it was probably around 2012. But like, and that's when when I couldn't find anything and I didn't have anything left, I would say that I was having a flare up and I would just go into the ER and be like, call my GI team up in Toledo, and they would ship me up there by ambulance, and I would be faking this flare up because I needed the meds. And they most of the time gave me IV Dilaudid or morphine, but typically Dilaudid.
And then you felt well for a day.
And they sent me home with another script.
Yep, it sounds about right. Yeah. And this was like early 2010s, and your clean date isn't until 2020. So what is going on in that space between now of you coming off your meds and from when you get clean? How bad did it get?
Like once I went to rehab and stuff, like when I stopped.
Well, I'm talking about when you came off the meds and you had nothing left. Is that when you started going to the street?
Yeah. And like I ended up getting linked up with, so at one point in my life, and I'm just going to preface this because a lot of people around here know me from that part of my life, I hooked up with some people that rap, and I also rapped. Like, I will never live that down, that part of my life. Like, they had a studio right down from my parents' house that happened to be in a house, and everybody was snorting all the pills and partying, and it was constant. And we thought we were writing like some awesome music. We went down to some weird dumpy bar in Columbus, and they had connections there. One of the guys is a Blood. So that opened a whole nother world for me. They were like selling 30s. So, and then we would bring them back here. So once I got into that, I was like, all right, I can get high and, you know what I'm saying? Like, get rid of these and it's going to supply my high and I'll have a little bit of extra whatever. And that's where that part of that went on for quite a while. Now I couldn't rap. None of us could. But like, come on. Like, it was just a social thing, and we were together 24/7. We would stay in the house, all pass out early morning of the hour and get up and repeat and get rid of more of the pills to people and go back down to Columbus. And it was.
Yeah, I used to do that thing where I got them for $20 a piece from like a guy that was higher up. Mm-hmm. And I would be selling them to people at $25 a piece. And every 4 that I sold, I got a free one.
Yep.
So I would be selling them to everybody I know, and in this way I get like a free 4 of them or free 5 of them, or only pay like $10 for 5 of them. It's the stuff that we did. It's a hustle. Like if people hustled, like if I don't know how I afford $100, $200 a day habit.
Yeah,
Like I can barely afford to keep, you know what I mean? Like now,
I
not
know.
being on drugs. Like it's crazy to think about. I was able
Yeah.
to keep myself well every day for a decade. So you were basically selling enough to keep yourself high.
Mm-hmm. And multiple like drive trips, like in the car on the way down, doing the pills and picking up more. And yeah,
How far is
that
that drive?
here to there, it was probably about hour and a half, but like it was some sketchy places. Like I
Is
had no
that
business being down there.
that reminds me of so like in the last 2 years of my addiction in 2016 and 2018, I lived in Lancaster County in PA, like Amish country.
Mm-hmm.
And all my connections were in South Jersey. And I would drive 2 hours each way 4 or 5 times a week in order to get pills.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I came up with that straw trick in the car because I would be throwing up in a bag in traffic in Philly trying to go over the bridge to get my pills
Yeah.
because I grew up 5 minutes from Philadelphia, like right over the bridge. And
Mm-hmm.
I would be sitting in traffic in Philly and I'd be so close to my destination, but yet so far away, because of traffic that I would be throwing up into a barf bag in my car as I was like sitting in traffic. And
Yeah.
then as soon as I would get them, I was shaking so much that I didn't have time to break them up and do them off of a CD case or some shit like
Right.
that. And that's how I came up with that straw trick in order to be driving 80 miles per hour and drop a couple in there and then keep going.
Yeah.
Um, so I was driving 2 hours each way 4 or 5 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
How often were you making that trip?
I would say once or twice a week. Um, it just depended. Like, and sometimes we would go up there and we would hang out in Columbus for a little while, a couple days, and stay somewhere sketchy or in a hotel and, just get high and live our best according to that time of my life. Live my best life.
I had somebody on in my earlier, like probably my first 20 episodes, right around the time Ashley was first on. She was from Ohio also, and her husband drove from Ohio to Florida once a week to go to one of those shady pill mill doctors down in
Yeah.
Florida and get a script. They both would get scripts of 150 each and a script, and they would come back and sell a bunch and then drive back again the following week, go to a different doctor,
Wow.
and they were getting almost 1,200 pills a month by doing that trip 4 times a week. I'm like, how long is that drive? And she was like, 21 hours. We would do it straight through, like a 21-hour drive with 4 people in the car and
Yeah.
taking turns driving. Like that is the most insane that I've heard in out of all the 160 people I've had on the show. That by far took the cake for the most desperate of I'm going to get these pills no matter what.
Right.
Um, when did are you a one and done rehabber or did you go to multiple?
Inpatient, I was one and done.
What do you mean by inpatient? Like, did you do other like outpatient rehabs
I
first?
did a lot of like IOPs and group counseling and things like that. And I like was so against like going somewhere and staying for weeks at a time, but I was just over it. And like I said, it was my choice to do it. I was kind of at the end of the road in the line as far as like I was just coming off like a coke bender, but like I still had so much stuff to deal with. So I went to it's called Midwest Recovery in Toledo. And they said I didn't really need to go to the detox, but I was desperate to go somewhere that night because, like I said, I knew I might change my mind. So, because I was coming off of cocaine at that time. and I don't think I was really dirty for anything else at that point. Um, but I had been
And coke
dabbling.
only stays in your system for like 3 days.
Yeah, and like a lot of places said that they don't not let you, but they don't have you come
Give
in
it back.
for detox for that. But they
So
ended up taking.
how did you get introduced to coke? Because you were all about downers. You know what I mean? Like doing 30s and oxy and dilaudid and fentanyl patches. Those are all downers. How how old were you when you discovered cocaine? Because that's just a totally different beast.
Honestly, I can't remember when and even who introduced me to it.
How long were you doing coke? Like, would you consider yourself a cokehead towards the end?
I want to say like it happened in a matter of like 6 months. Honestly, if I think back to it, I think it was an ex-boyfriend of mine that I was with for like 7 years. And it was like what they all did that we would play phase 10 and stay up all night and a card game and do tons of coke. And like after at that point, like it was like a good 6 months, like we were, back and forth. We would take a little bit of a break, but then we would go like it was balls to the wall, like out of hand. And I never thought I would have been away from like the opiates and the downers, but like I liked it, I guess. It was
Yeah, I
like
mean,
a big like thing surrounded with like going to Fremont and staying up all night and playing cards and doing coke.
and you're not withdrawing as bad on opiates if you're doing coke every day.
True.
Because that's giving you the body high and the head high, and that gives you the drip that snorting pills will give you that drip. Coke
Yeah.
gives you that disgusting. At first, when I did cocaine, I felt like I was going to throw up from the drip. I'm like, what the fuck is this in the back of my throat? And they're like, no, it's good. It's good. I'm like, no, I don't want. And then next thing you know, I become a drug addict anyway. That snorts everything you put in front of me. I'll
Yeah.
do a line of aspirin. Yeah, I'll do a line. I
Yeah.
don't care what it is. Like I remember during one of the Super Bowls, I guess it was 2009. I was about 2 or 3 months into my pill addiction. I had just graduated the 30s. I had started off at 10s, school buses, and
Yep.
bananas, and I graduated from them into the Roxy's 30s. And it was the Super Bowl, and we couldn't find shit to buy. And I finally found a friend who had a script of fives, and she sold me the entire script for like $100. And my friend and I were like breaking up all these giant 5 milligram pills, and we're doing these monster lines because that's why I knew about the Tylenol thing.
Yeah.
Because you're doing all, and then your nose is just clogged the entire
Yeah.
time, and you're getting shit.
Oh, yeah. I don't even want to remember about that. Oh my God.
Like it's like a full stop. Your nose, you just got to breathe out of your mouth because your nose is completely clogged with white dust from the Tylenol.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, I can't believe I remember that.
You're bringing back memories that I'm like, dang, because I remember getting like the Vicks menthol stick things that you could put and like thinking it would clear me out to keep going, keep snorting more pills. Like, and then I would be like, oh my God, I can't blow my nose yet because then I might blow some of the pill out
Yeah,
and I need my high, the whole thing.
yeah. Like it's gross to admit, but like I had to like stick my
Did you
finger.
eat like a perk booger?
Yeah, I had to. I'm not gonna lose that. That's money. You know what I mean? Like it's gross to admit, but at the same time, I'm not giving that money away into a tissue.
No.
Like I'm not blowing this. I'm getting this no matter what. I don't care if I'm sticking my finger up my nose. You're
Yeah.
all there too. Like you're not going to judge me. A perk booger. That's exactly what it is. Um,
I'm not even gonna flick at the wrong person.
yeah, no, this is going right into my mouth, and I'm going to take all of this. Oh my god, the shit we would do to keep ourselves high. Oh my god. So you finally decide, all right, it's time for rehab. How long did you go away?
So January 9th, 2020 was when I first went to my detox day, like the next follow, like the full day. And then I ended up coming home early from residential because like I went to housing and like we would go to what they called the center for group all day, and
Um,
come back to housing and then go to like outside meetings. So this was in the midst of COVID starting. They put us on mandatory no movement because meetings weren't being held, like I was there from January 9th all the way into like, I would really have to look, but I want to say like end of March. So like I still had like 20 or 30 more days they suggested that I stay, but I had talked to like one of the house supervisors or resident, whatever they call them, and had a long discussion. They required everyone to get a sponsor while you were in residential and housing. So I called my sponsor, ran it by her, and I'm like, we can't go anywhere like for my recovery. So I took a risky choice, but I came home early, and I started getting into recovery online, like, because that's all we had, everything.
yeah.
If there was a time to try and get clean and stay clean and work a hard recovery, that was like a huge challenge with no,
In
in-person
person.
interaction.
Yeah. I
And
still don't do in person. I do. I
yeah.
did when I had my relapse. I did 30 and 30 with AA, but
Mm-hmm.
I found it so hard to go to AA because where I live, they're so strict on not talking about drugs. And yes, I'm an alcoholic, but
Yeah.
alcohol is not just my story; it's drugs too.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't openly talk about my drug use in AA, but I can talk about my alcohol abuse and my drug abuse in NA because in NA, alcohol is a drug. Period.
Considered
It's
a drug. Yep.
it's part of the literature. So I found a good Zoom meeting that I do. It's based out of Providence, Rhode Island, and I do that every day at noon. It's during the weekdays. It's not on the weekends. So that's when I do GA is on the weekends.
Yeah.
So and then when did you decide that you were going to drink casually? Like what? Because obviously that didn't happen early on, and I'm not judging for it because I know people
Yeah.
that do. You know what I mean? Because
Um,
alcohol obviously wasn't a part of your story. Not once did we mention you drinking. It was all opiates and coke.
yeah. I did a lot of like partying when I was like junior, senior year high school, but like drinking beer, playing beer pong, that type of thing. But I actually, so I was in and out of probation and like the criminal system to go along with my addiction. Of course, I had like some thefts and I was in jail 12 times, but I won't go into that here. On probation violations because I could never piss clean. But eventually, when I got successfully completed from probation, even then, after that, I was going regularly to NA, AA, and it started off as I was court ordered to go to so many meetings and get my little slip signed, but I took part in service work and would run a meeting a week for NA, and that made me feel really fulfilled. And I just kept doing that. And of course, like you said, alcohol is a drug. Duh, like that's what we used to. So I was okay with that, And then when I started working in treatment about 3 years ago, even then at the beginning, I wasn't drinking. So I would say over the past maybe year, I started and not I'm not talking going and sitting at a bar and drinking and taking shots with a bunch of people because I'm
Yeah.
very much a homebody now. But I would say over the like past year, I have went to like an event or went to my best friend's house and like we drank like some wine and things like that. But yeah, I would say I don't really know what went through my mind to be like, hey, like I'm gonna drink now here and there. But it's not something that I'm going to tell everyone you should try that for your recovery. I had to do a lot of like self work and get down to like those addict behaviors, and like I start EMDR therapy on Monday for some trauma as a child that I have still. But I am in a good place overall. So
yeah, I heard EMDR can be intense.
That's what I hear too.
But in a good way, in a healing kind of way. My wife did it. And so, I have heard good things about it. And I know people that can casually, drink at a friend's house, break out a bottle of wine, or if you're at like a birthday party, you have a beer.
Yeah.
Like I totally see that. If you're not going to the bar every night, or you're not at home by yourself drinking all night, then that's when I would say, maybe you should, cut back.
Yeah.
But like I can respect that. I don't think I could do it because I tried it on my 13-month anniversary of being clean and sober, like literally May 25th of 2019. I decided I was going to drink, and I went out and I bought a 6-pack of Twisted Tea, and I came home, I drank 4, and then I dumped out the other 2 because I wanted to prove that I didn't need to drink all 6, and only an alcoholic would need to drink all 6, because they always say you have to drink every last drop. Yeah. But really, only an alcoholic does that kind of math and thinks that way. And I unsuccessfully drank for 9 months, where I would find myself drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels in one night. And I woke up on Leap Day of 2020, February 29th, and I was hungover as shit. And I said to my wife, we either need to like start drinking now, or we have to like quit completely. And so we decided to quit that day. So my last drink was February 28th of 2020, close to your date, and still haven't had a drink still. So like I said, I have multiple dates that are important to me. But thank you, Kim, for taking the time to sit down and talk about your story.
Yeah.
Is that a kitty? Yesterday was International Cat Day.
This is Doja Cat.
Oh my God. Look at that face. It's adorable.
I'm like, they say, try to get a plant, and I always kill plants. Sorry. Like, I don't know what it is. So now I have my cat, and she is my life. And like my son is home now, but like he's 16, and typically it's summer break. So he's either gaming or out with friends. He just got done with baseball, but it's just me, him, and my cat.
We have 2 cats. They're brother and sister, like from the same litter, Scuba and Diver.
Oh my gosh.
And Scuba, the girl cat, is obsessed with my wife, and Diver, the male cat's obsessed with me. Like he sleeps on my back every night. And he gotten so chunky that we call him Plops now, because it was Diver because he would dive under blankets, and now he's not diving under anything because he's so chunky. So now we call him Plop, where he just plops down on stuff. But thank you again, Kim. I really appreciate you sitting on here being so open about your story. I know a lot of people can relate to it. Obviously, I can relate a lot to it. The things that we would do to get our fix every single day. It was a full-time job to stay high every day.
And to remember the lies that I made in my stories.
Oh my God. You'd almost have to write down like the shit. Like I told this person this, and I had it in my iPhone, in my notepad of my iPhone. Like I owe this person this many. I told this person I would give him this many, and I would have to keep track. And, when I got paid or when I got a new script, now I had to make everything right with everybody. This way I could be back to zero and start getting start getting my fronts. You know what I mean? Because I would be fronted so many by different people.
Yeah, I know.
It was a shit show. It was a shit show. I'm so glad that I'm 6 years away from opiates, because it was a shit show. And congrats on your 4.5 years. That's fucking awesome.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too. Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.